Today's lesson is Module 1, Lesson 7. Our objective is to demonstrate the commutativity of multiplication and practice related facts by skip counting in array models. The materials needed for today are your whiteboard, dry erase marker, and dry eraser. We're going to continue to follow the teaching style where I do it and you watch, we do it at the same time, and then you do it on your own. We do have one vocabulary term for today. Our vocabulary term is the commutative property. Go ahead and practice saying that with me now. Ready? Commutative property. One more time. Commutative property. It's a little tough to say. Commutative property are numbers in addition and multiplication can be switched and the answer always stays the same. So if you look at our pictures here, this one over here represents 3 groups of 2, which equals 6 cats altogether. This over here is different. It's 2 groups of 3, but it also equals 6. You might notice that the 3 and the 2 are flip-flopped from this equation to this one. So the 3 moves over here and the 2 moves over here, but you get the same answer both times. Okay? So if we skip count by 2s, 2, 4, 6. Or we skip count by 3s for this one, 3, 6. We get the same answer either way, okay? That's what we're going to be practicing showing today. So I'm going to start where I'm going to work through a problem. Make sure that you are watching as I do it so that you don't miss anything. First, it says for me to draw an array for 4 times 2, or 4 groups of 2. So over here, I have my array. Then it says use a paper to cover all but 1 row of dots. So on my example here, I have this box, which signifies a piece of paper, and it's covering all the rows except the first row. And the question asks, how many 2s show? 2s is our unit, if you remember that vocab word from before. So how many 2s show, or groups of 2? Well, we can see here, there's 1 group of 2. Write the multiplication sentence that matches the array and solve. We have 1 group of 2, which equals 2. There's 2 dots there. 1 group of 2 dots equals 2 dots total. Then it says uncover another row. How many 2s show? So the paper's been moved down. Now we see another row of 2. So there's 2 rows, or 2 groups of 2. So there's 2 2s, and if we count by 2s, we have 2, 4. Now we have 4 dots altogether. Write the multiplication sentence that matches the array and solve. So that's what we just did. You'll notice in our multiplication sentence, you might be noticing a pattern over here. First we had 1 row, now we have 2. There's 2 dots in each row, so that second number is staying the same. And our answer is going up by 2s because we are skip counting by 2s. Uncover another row. How many 2s show? Now we have 1 row of 2s, 2 row of 2s, 3 rows of 2s. Write the multiplication sentence that matches the array and solve. We have 3 groups of 2, we're going to keep our skip count, 2, 4, 6. So you'll notice again, our first number is going up by 1 each time because we have 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows. Each row has 2, so that number stays the same. And our answer keeps going up by 2, 2, 4, 6, because we're counting the total number of dots. Uncover another row. How many 2's show? So now we've uncovered all of the rows, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 2's, or 4 groups of 2. Write the multiplication sentence that matches the array and solve. So now I have 4 rows of 2, and I'm going to continue my skip count, 2, 4, 6, 8. So my first number is counting the number of rows, and so that goes up each time. 1, 2, 3, 4. The second number is how many are in each row, or the size of the row, and that stays the same because there's 2 in every row, so that does not change. And my product, or my answer, goes up by 2 each time because we're counting now the number of dots, and there's 2 in each row, so we have to count by 2's. 2, 4, 6, 8. So here's the picture of my array. Altogether, we have 4 rows of 2, which equals 8. And here shows the skip count for each row, 2, 4, 6, 8. Now, it says, rotate your board 90 degrees so that the long size is vertical. So what I did is I took that picture and I turned it on its side. What happened to the array? It's no longer 4 rows of 2. It is tipped on its side, so now we can count. There's 1, 2 rows, and each row has 4. So there's 2 rows of 4. Okay. There are 2 rows or horizontal groups in an array. So remember, our rows go side to side. 1 row side to side, 2 rows side to side. Skip count the rows by 4. Skip counting by 4 is not something we've done really. So if you don't know how to skip count by 4, you can always count each dot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If we were skip counting by 4s, we would just say 4, 8. So there's 8 dots altogether. What multiplication sentence can represent this array? So before we had 4 rows of 2 equaled 8, but we do not have 4 rows anymore, so we cannot write that for this one. We have 1, 2 rows. So now the 2 goes first. We have 2 rows of, or 2 groups of, 1, 2, 3, 4 in each row. So it's 2 groups of 4. And when we skip counted, we still got to 8. 2 rows of 4 equals 8. And already you might be noticing something about these numbers here. What do you notice about the multiplication sentences? So here in A is the first array that we had where it was 4 rows of 2. Here is B, which is the array we just finished with, which is 2 rows of 4 equals 8. So what do we notice about these multiplication sentences? I'm going to give you a minute to think about what you have noticed about these two multiplication sentences, and then we're going to go into a quick breakout group so that you can share your thinking with your classmates. So how is this equation for A and this equation for B? What do you notice about those two equations? Take this time to think before you get to your group. Okay, I'm going to send you into your breakout groups now. You'll have about 1 minute to discuss what you noticed about those two equations or those two multiplication sentences. I'm going to pop into each group to listen to your answers, and then I'll bring us all back so that we can talk about it. Okay, so in your group, you might have noticed that the 8 stayed the same. So our product stayed the same. That is true. You may have also noticed that our factors, or the numbers that we multiply together, are 4 and 2, 2 and 4. So there's a 4 in both equations, and there's a 2 in both equations. So we have the same factors, but we have flip-flopped them. So they have switched places. And even though they switched places, the answer stayed the same. So in multiplication, you can flip-flop the factors and the answer stays the same. And you'll notice that in our pictures here, or in our drawing of our array, it is the same thing, except one array is turned on its side, and then that makes the other array. The number of dots do not change. Only the number of rows and the size of the row changes. So this next question is, what do the 4 and the 2 represent in each? Okay, so here the 4 represents the number of rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the number of rows, or we would say that is the number of groups. Over here, there's 2 rows. So in this equation, the 2 represents the number of rows or the number of groups. Now, over here, this 2 represents the size of the group, or how many are in each row. And over here, the 4 represents the size of the group, or how many are in each row. Okay, so the 4 and the 2, when they flip-flop, they represent a different part of the equation. So, in summary, factors can switch places and trade meanings, but the total stays the same. We call that the commutative property. So that this whole lesson has been focused on that vocab word, commutative property, which says we can take 2 factors and we can switch them and they stay the same. The answer stays the same. Now we were at the part where you are going to do this with me. So on your whiteboard, I want you to draw an array that shows 8 rows of 2. So I'm going to give you a minute to start there before we move on to the next step. Draw an array that shows 8 rows of 2. So if you count your rows, there should only be 2 in each row. So count how many rows you have going side to side. There should be 8 of them. And in each row, you should have 2. Okay, so go ahead and check your drawing with mine. I'm going to draw 8 rows of 2. There's 1 row of 2, 2 rows, 3 rows of 2, 4 rows, 5 rows, 6 rows, 7 rows, 8 rows of 2. So I have 8 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and there's 2 in each row. Okay, 8 rows of 2. And another way you might think of this is 8 rows of 2. Next, it says, skip count to find the total and a number sentence to represent the array. So let's go ahead and skip count by 2s. So we're going to count each row. 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm going to stop there and I'm going to let you finish skip counting all the way down to the bottom till you find your total number of dots. Okay, so your numbers on the side should be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So then it wants a number sentence to represent the array. Well, we have 8 rows of 2, and that equals 16 circles all together. So our 8 rows of 2 equals 16. Okay, so here is the picture that you drew on your whiteboard with your labeled skip count, and then the equation that we came up with, which was 8 rows of 2 equals 16. I want you to take your whiteboard and turn it on its side so that now it looks like this drawing over here. So you don't have to erase anything, you don't have to redraw, just take your picture and turn it on its side. Okay, so now what we're going to do is come up with a new equation by skip counting. We're not too great at skip counting by 8s, not something that we've practiced. So we can just count each one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I want you to go ahead and continue counting and write your next skip count number right here to figure out how many dots we have total in this picture on the right. So if you continued your counting, you were at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So your skip count by 8s would have been 8, 16. So we counted by 8s 2 times because we have 1, 2 rows. So now we have 2 rows of 8, because there's 8 in each row, and that equaled 16 dots altogether. And look at that. Our answer stayed the same. Our 8 and our 2 flip-flopped. So we turned our array on the side, which made, instead of 8 rows, we had 8 in each row. And instead of 2 in each row, we ended up with 2 rows. So our numbers or our factors flip-flopped, but our answer stayed the same because we didn't draw any new dots. We didn't take any dots away. All we did was turn the picture on its side to represent a new equation. Now we are at the part of the lesson where you will work on your homework alone to demonstrate what you have learned. It is a CAMI assignment for today, Thursday, under week 6. You're going to be doing number 1 and number 2. We're going to skip number 3. So on your CAMI assignment, you'll see that it's crossed out. And then you'll do number 4 down at the bottom. Please make sure that you read the directions carefully. I have many students on our last assignment that did not draw or circle when it asked you to draw or circle, and then you're losing points on that. And it's very important for me to know that you know how to make the pictures that match the problems that we're doing. So I'm going to show you something in CAMI that you may not have known about that can help you with reading the problems. Okay, so in your CAMI assignment, once you open it up, there's a feature over here that says text to speech. If you click on text to speech, you can then come over, you can highlight what you would like it to read to you, and as soon as you let go, it will begin reading to you. So you can have it read you the problem, and then you can do what it says. Then you can move on to the next part and highlight it. And of course, if you accidentally highlight something you don't want it to read, there's the stop button over here, okay? And you can continue doing that for the entire worksheet. Okay, so if you did not know about that feature already, that is text to speech. So if you are not sure whether you're reading the question correctly or you need help having it read to you, that is an option for you, okay? Because my focus is on whether or not you can do the math, not whether or not you can read the equation or the problem, okay? So that feature is there to help you. All right, go ahead and open up your CAMI and begin.